Let's just dive in to our current topic today. Today, we are going to be talking about how to raise children that are lifelong learners through child-directed learning. So this is what we are going to talk about, inshallah, but also in addition to this, towards the end, we will, inshallah, also talk about how to increase or promote their success in school system, inshallah. All right, so a common complaint I often hear from parents is they say things like, my child is very intelligent, but he does not study. If only he would sit for a certain amount of time and just study each subject, he is going to excel at it. There's no doubt because he is so intelligent. But how do I motivate my child to actually sit and study? So for that, we are going to first talk about how do children actually learn. The truth is, children are born with insatiable hunger and drive to learn. They are just so busy wanting to know everything about their practical world around them. Have you ever observed a baby? There is no dull moment in his life or her life, but for the ease of it, I'll just say he, and it applies to both genders the same way. So if you've observed a baby, he is constantly moving and observing and reaching out and moving all of its limbs. Sometimes I just find it fascinating how every part of a movable body part is moving when they're lying down on the bed and they're awake, just looking around and moving all their limbs, and even like their toes are going up and down. SubhanAllah, it's fascinating to watch. So a child comes in this world fully prepared to learn and master the world around them. Did you ever see a child needing a lecture on how to breastfeed or how to crawl or walk? Now, this sounds absurd because children are born with a built-in systems to want to latch, to want to feed, and to try their best and keep trying till they get it right. They are unstoppable. A child that's trying to crawl, for example, or trying to walk, they don't need you to teach them. They just need for you to be present to keep the environment safe for them. They're going to do all the work by themselves because they are intrinsically motivated. They are unstoppable. You can't stop a child from learning unless you lock them away in a room or cage, or you put them in a school. So this is a joke. Like if you put them in a school, it just kills their drive to learn, subhanAllah. Anyway, the child is intrinsically motivated to learn how to breastfeed, how to crawl, how to walk, how to talk, how to eat. And I'm here to tell you that the child is built with a drive to learn, to master the world around them, to know as much as possible about the practical world. So this desire and hunger for knowledge, for learning, is already there. Allah sent him in this world with this desire to learn. So they are intrinsically motivated. That's what intrinsically motivated means. Is the motivation to learn comes from inside. Nobody has to tell them. My 1-year-old, as soon as I've changed his nappy, he loves to get up and pick it up and go throw it in the bin. And then he wouldn't even look at me. Just this process of just picking the nappy up like mama does and putting it in the bin, he knows that this is something that's supposed to happen. So he does it with so much happiness. And he doesn't even care if I praise or clap or reward him or acknowledge him for that. This desire is in every child until we start giving external motivations. Now, the thing is about intrinsic motivation is that it flies away when external motivation starts coming in. So now every time your child throws the nappy away or does something that you find remarkable or you approve of, you start clapping or you start praising them, then the child starts associating that activity with praise, and they start getting used to the praise. The next time you're not looking at the child, he will not be intrinsically motivated to throw that nappy away. Rather, he would look at you. If you're not looking to praise or approve, he's not going to do the activity. So the desire to do it himself slowly starts to diminish, slowly starts to go away. So these are some subtle things that we do in our everyday life that set up our children for later on not wanting to learn or resist the learning or resist the knowledge, is because we don't foster their intrinsic motivation. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about how we learn things. How does anybody learn things? Think about the last time you learned something. Why did you learn that thing? Why? First, we're going to talk about why, and then we're going to talk about how, so that we can replicate that in our child's life. So first, you have to find your child's why. Like, why would he learn or why would he be interested in this subject? A sister said, we learn by experience. Yes, this is how. But why do you learn something? Like, think about last time you learned something. Why did you learn it? What made you want to learn it? Okay, after making a mistake, the desire to do it better the next time. Okay, so you needed it in your life. What else? What else makes you want to learn something? Was interested in the subject or to find out more about it. Okay, so you were interested in the subject yourself. So the desire to know about the subject came from inside of you. So you wanted to find out more about that. So something sparked your interest and then you wanted to find out more about that. Excellent. For some purpose. Excellent. So I've written down some common things why we learn things. So we learn things, first of all, due to necessity. You want to cook something delicious. So what you're going to do is you're going to learn how to make a nicer food. Or maybe you learn something because you need it for a purpose. It is a means to an end. For example, driving itself might be really boring or horrible for you to learn, but then what can it do for you in real life? What meaning does it have in your real life? So maybe you can go to your favorite masjid or halaqa, or maybe you can go to your favorite sports activity, or maybe it can drive you to your relative's house whom you really love to see. So driving is not in itself what you want, but it is a means to a purpose. That's why you learned it. Another thing is it could add a meaning to your life. A meaning to your life, maybe like Quran or learning about Islamic education. Why are you learning it? Because it means a lot to you to make your creator, to make Allah happy, to earn his pleasure and to earn Jannah. And that has a huge meaning to you in your life. So you are motivated by that to learn it. A sister said to survive. Some things you need to learn to survive. Excellent. So it comes under the necessity. So we learned it to necessity or need it for a purpose or it adds meaning to your life. So that's why we learn things. Do you learn things because somebody forced you to learn it? For example, as an adult, if someone tells you that you should really learn algebra, it's good for you, should learn it. And then they bring you a book or provide you a bunch of videos and they start locking you up in a room with that knowledge for an hour each day, for example. Would you be motivated to learn that? Would you be able to do it? Or would you resist that? The fact is, never. No. You will be motivated to learn it that way because chances are you won't find it meaningful to your life. You would find it a waste of time. Yet we tell our children what to do every hour of each day. We force teach them things that they don't want to learn because they don't find meaning, because they don't think it's necessary. And they start resisting it. Then we worry that the children are not compliant or not obedient enough to us. We are surprised that this is so essential to them. Why are they not learning it? It's because they don't see it as adding immediate value to their life. That's why they are resistant. Okay, so that's a why. So each thing your child is resisting, think about how you can make that, or you can show him, for example, that this thing will add immediate value to their life. Because the desire to learn needs to come from inside. They need to be intrinsically motivated to be able to learn that. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. Even if they learned it, if you force them, they're not going to retain that information. And that's what unfortunately happens in our schooling system. We're going to talk about more of that later, inshallah. And now let's go to how do we learn things? How do we actually learn things? So when you want to cook, for example, you might phone up your grandma or your mother. You made such a nice cake. Can you tell me how? So this is asking people, or books and videos. Books and videos are also a very good means to learn something. And 70% of what you learn comes from doing. You can read all the books in the world, but unless you try to bake that cake yourself, you are not going to learn it properly. 70% of education comes from doing. And subhanAllah, our children spend years and years trying to know the information that they will be able to reproduce on command, on paper, on form of test or exams. Then they are thrown in the adult world, the practical world, where all of a sudden, what they know doesn't really matter. What they can practically perform is what matters. So, for example, a doctor who knows everything about a human body but can't treat patients is of no use. Yet, most of our schooling system is based on cramming information. It doesn't prepare us for the real world, but there's so much emphasis on it for our children to do better, to go through the schooling system. And the funny thing is, how the child instinctively wants to learn is actually what will prepare him for the real world. Because children wants to practically do things. And when we make them sit in a certain way and repeat the formula enough times so they can produce it on demand, that's when they start hating the education. And oftentimes, if they're forced enough, they wouldn't want to do anything with it for the rest of their lives. Now, this is my 3-year-old. The other day, I was lying down and he looked himself in the fridge and he saw there was cheese and he saw there was dough and he saw that there was sauce and he came to Mama. He says, Mama, can I make pizza for myself? I said, I don't know, maybe I don't have enough ingredients. He goes, Mama, you have sauce, Mama, you have dough and you have cheese, so I can make pizza for myself. I said, okay, sure. Then I facilitated that for him. I gave him the ingredients. I made the dough ball for him, but that's the only thing I did because all of the other steps, spreading the dough, putting sauce and cheese on it, and the oven pot as well, everything he did it himself. And then he kept an eye on it, kept a watch on it until it was red on the top. And then he came and told me, Mama, I think it's ready. It's red on the top. So we came and took it out. Now, the thing is, there is nothing extraordinary or special about this because most 3 and 4 years old are capable of that. They are capable of that if we let them, if we provide the environment for them. And as adults, it is our responsibility to provide a rich learning environment that has plenty of options for them to pursue what they want to learn, what they want to master. My one child is more interested in working with me and cooking and stuff. The other child is more interested in climbing things. And it's my job as a parent to provide both of them those opportunities. Plenty of climbing opportunities. If I don't have it at home, I need to take them out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف بدأ الخلق. And tell them to roam in the earth and see how Allah started the creation. Now, سيروا في الأرض is the message that I want to give all the parents. For optimum learning of your child, you need to take them out and provide them with options, with things that they can do. Oftentimes, just taking them to a park where they can manipulate the real life objects like sticks and rocks and just throw the rocks in a puddle or beat the tree with a stick. All of this is a great amount of practical life learning. Those skills that they learn now, they are going to use it later on in their life. They're going to find it really useful later on in their life. But sadly, very little of that happens in our schooling system. And sadly, our parents feel compelled to send children to that system when they're 4 or 5, and there's no need for that. And subhanAllah, sometimes even younger than that, I see the parents as if trying to get rid of the children. They don't know what to do with them and they want to get rid of the children, and they feel satisfied that they're providing them with quality education over there. And they want time for themselves. They want that time to spend on their life. But the thing is, what our Salaf used to say, the saying is, and it's attributed to Ali or Umar ibn Khattab. So the saying is, لاعب ابنك سبعا وأدبه سبعا وآخه سبعا. So play with your child for 7 years of his life, then teach him for the next 7 years, and then befriend him for the next 7 years. So the truth is that for the first 7 years, you should be with your child, even if you're not with your child, because I believe that it takes a village to raise a child, and it's not just a parent's job to raise that child. It is an extended family thing. It should be a social thing, a community thing. So the thing is that the first 7 years is for investment. And if you invest in these years, then you are going to reap the benefits for the rest of your life. You will have a confident adult who is able to think critically for himself and who will have leadership qualities in himself, who will be confident and knows a lot about practical world, the practical knowledge that he would need for the practical world, and the skills that he would need for the practical world. So now let's talk a little bit about our traditional schooling system. It was created in Germany, and the purpose of the schooling system was to create obedient workers, and they did not make it a secret. Like, this purpose was actually like taught. So the founder's name is August Hermann Franke. So he founded the current schooling system where it's compulsory to send kids to school from certain age to a certain age. And the purpose, as I said, was to produce compliant, obedient workers who would do as told, not much confidence or critical thinking, and they made no secret of their intent, because the founder says, above all, it is necessary to break the natural willfulness of a child. Break the will, break the desire, break the will, as in make him weak. He's not able to stand for himself. So break the willfulness of a child. While the schoolmaster who makes the child more learned is to be commended, it is praiseworthy if he teaches children, but he has not done enough. He has forgotten his most important task, namely making the will obedient. Making the will obedient. So that is the purpose of our schooling system. Now, is that really what we want for our children? To become adults who are less confident and more compliant? No, we want to raise leaders, inshallah. Now, imagine being transported to the age of the Salaf. Let me set a scene for you here. Imagine you being a traditional family in the Salaf's time. Each day, your child, if he's younger than 5 or the 7, stay with you at home, doing all the things that are necessary. There's no compulsion or no schooling system like that is today. The child is very involved in real life, maybe going to meet their cousins and playing with them, or maybe if the child is a little bit older, going with his father to the masjid, going everywhere with the father, to the souk to buy and sell, maybe, or to the halaqas of Quran that are in the masjid. And the child goes to the masjid and see a halaqa of hadith over here, halaqa of Quran over here, and he sees that in some house there is a group of people learning to maybe knit, and like that's accessible to him. So he goes maybe with his mother and sits and knits with women, maybe, for example. And there is all their different areas of groups of gatherings of people that are doing different things. Maybe there is a doctor somewhere who has some pupils with him that are varying ages. It doesn't depend on the age, rather it depends on the readiness to receive that knowledge. So the pupils are of varying age, and the doctor is treating the cold with this thing, and then some other person is coming. So they are practically learning everything. And let me tell you a story of a child grown in that environment. So this particular child, he went to masjid, became very interested in Quran learning. So he memorized the Quran by the age of 10. He was a hafiz, mashallah. Then by the age of 13, he started showing a remarkable interest in medicine. He started learning that, but on top of that, he still started going to the different halaqas, and he also developed a taste for philosophy, developed a taste for astronomy, developed a taste for poetry, and this is a real life story. And he started learning from here and learning from there. He was intrinsically motivated to learn all those things. Nobody was forcing him. So he was just drinking it all up and just satiating his hunger that way. And by the time he was 18, he was an expert doctor of his time. By the time he was 21, he was not only an expert doctor, but he was considered a master of many fields like poetry and philosophy and astronomy and maths. And he also treated the sultan of his time named Sultan Mansur, and that sultan gave him access to his personal library, and he loved the library and he started learning like anything from that library. And that person or that child at that time was Ibn Sina. His name was Ibn Sina. So this is a real life story of that child. Now let's think of our schooling system. Is your child an Ibn Sina who is sent to school? What happens in this our schooling system? What happens is education is very slow paced. They drag the thing out for years and years. And oftentimes, what they teach in a year of school education can be learned in just a month of like regular homeschooling. When the child is showing interest in that subject, he can learn it so fast that no need to waste that much time in the school for that. Because as we said, there's statistics, the speaker, Seen Bengri, he says, only 10% education happens in schools. Only 10% of your child's education happens through schools. 70% happens through practically doing, and 20% happens from people around, social networking, parents, grandparents, people who've already gone through that. So this is a common occurrence in my family. So I'll give you real life examples that our family, mashallah, is religious. So I could see that my cousin in an extended family, initially they would give more focus on learning about Deen and Quran and stuff. So before actually enrolling the children to school, the child has more often memorized the whole Quran, and then they would admit them to school. So by the time they admit them to school, the child is really ready to learn, to go through to the school education. And at that time, the child covers the whole education, like maybe 7 years. Some go to 8th grade, some go to 9th grade, and they cover all the subjects taught in like maybe 6 months or less. Now, this is an example of how school drags on education and waste children's precious time. So I would call to homeschooling for all the parents that really want to make something of their children. I would call for them to homeschool. There is so much you can do when you're homeschooling. For example, taking your child to the mashayikh, durus, the real life lessons. The child will just sit there and look and be impressed and be intrinsically motivated. Taking your child to halaqas of Quran, but you being there with them so they can see that you are modeling that learning, you're modeling that passion, and they would start being passionate about that as well. So this is a call to homeschool, but I understand that it is not accessible to everybody. It's probably not an option for everyone to homeschool their children. For that, inshallah, we are going to talk about how to make children better learner in schools as well. And there are just two things that I would like for you to start implementing immediately in your life, even if you are not homeschooling, and that is reading and exploring. Reading, as in reading stories of Salaf, for example, or just any reading books with your children, reading science book, dedicate a time in a day where you would read with your child, maybe like before sleeping, call on like a family meeting, everybody sitting together, reading a book together, learning about something together. It is highly educational to do that. Or maybe exploring as قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, taking them to places and letting them explore, letting them learn by doing things practically. Like maybe take them to light a fire, for example. Teach them those real life skills, how to light a fire, or maybe teach them archery or horseback riding. Just think about skills. What skills can I give my child now? All right. So the last thing is how to promote success in traditional school. So the first thing, like I said, is to model learning yourself. If you want your child to learn Quran, then you should demonstrate your passion of learning Quran yourself. So you should be reading Quran daily, so your child would be interested in that. So model learning. Or if you want your child to love reading, for example, then you should be attached to books and you should have exciting books around the house for them to pick up and read, and they should be at their level. For example, a child that's like 4 years old, not going to be interested in a lot of words, so get books that's their level. Give them choices and options. So give them as much control as possible. The best way for a child to learn and for you to support them is to follow their lead. Look at what your child wants to do now, what your child wants to learn about. Maybe he's seen a weird insect in the park, for example, and he wants to talk to you about it. Then both of you go find out information about that insect. Oh, where can we find more information about that insect? Maybe in the library. Let's go find a library, or maybe look at it on the internet, videos of that insect. So that is a form of learning. So give them as much charge of their education as possible. If you follow their lead, you will see that they are going to be, in time, they're going to have a well-rounded education of their practical life. The thing is, most parents worry that if they follow their child's lead, they're not going to get a balanced education. But the truth is, if you look at our learning, do we actually have a balanced education? Like, do we every day do we go to science and then geography and then this and this? No. What happens is our learning is like that. It comes in phases. Maybe one phase we are more interested in sewing. Maybe one phase we are more interested in learning about cooking. One phase happens where we're more interested in about reading. So our learning happens in phases, and so does theirs. This is not a natural way to learn, is to have every single subject in every single day. That's not a natural way to learn. So the best thing you can do for your child is to follow their lead and let them have a time period of acute interest in one subject while neglecting the others. That's okay. for a time being. They will come back to others later when they think they've mastered this one. Okay. Then they let them have their own path in life. Don't project your own life on them. Many parents, if they wanted to be doctors themselves and they couldn't do it, then they start projecting that on your child. Maybe they wanted to be a sheikh and they couldn't do it. They start projecting that on your child. Sometimes parent wants to live life through their children. They think that it's their second chance of redeeming themselves and through their child making something of themselves that they were not able to do before. But that is not a good way of thinking, because you have to trust that each child comes in this world with their own path. They are not an extension of you. You are separate from them. What is your life, but what is their interest? They are an individual that you need to take their interest in account. Another thing you can do is to take pressure off. Don't compare or shame for less marks. This is the most detrimental thing you could do for the love of learning, is if you start focusing or noticing their marks. And how you can support them is that, for example, if your child is more interested in science and that's what they're spending most of their time doing, then let them do it. And if the other teachers complain, then you need to have your child's back, and you need to tell your child that it's okay. That it's okay for you to focus on one thing more that you like, and for the other things, if you get like maybe passing marks, then that should be okay. Because how the world is changing now, like before you needed to have like certain marks in every single subject, you have to excel in a subject so you can go to a certain college and then maybe you get a good job, so that you can earn some money or you can earn good money. But that's not how money works now. Now you need to have more skills. If you have more skills, then you are going to be more valuable. So because the day and time is changing now, you need to start like adapting and not pressurize your children for more marks in this subject or that subject. Also, don't make the school their whole worth. For example, if they don't perform well in school, then you're upset with them. Or if they don't perform well in school, or if they don't do their homework for that day, then you're not going to allow them anything else, not going to allow them to go to like social gatherings or anything that they value. Don't make the school like this huge main thing that they need to do, because that is going to destroy their passion for learning. Also, allow time for passion. What happens is when your child is excelling in one area, then that will give him confidence, and that confidence will manifest in improvements in all other areas of life. I know of a child who was bullied in school, had no confidence, but what happens is like that child has a beautiful voice about Quran reciting. So in third grade, that child stood up and recited Quran in front of everybody, and everybody was impressed. And this one skill, only one skill, boosted so much of his confidence that mashallah was able to stand up to the bullies, and he was able to improve general performance in all other subjects as well. So give your child this one passion that he's really passionate in, let them pursue. That would be a means for the confidence to increase. For example, give them one skill like karate, for example. If they're excelling at karate, or if they're excelling at certain like craft making, they could make like maybe bracelets and show it off to their friends, for example. That skill is going to give them confidence that is going to show across on all other areas of learning as well, inshallah. So that is it for today. If you have any questions, you can just type them down. If you have any questions in any areas of anything I have mentioned or anything about your child, please bring it up so we can talk about it. The sister has asked, what exactly is homeschooling? What can we do in it? Right. So homeschooling, basically, it comes in a lot of forms. You can follow a curriculum, but you don't have to be strict about it. Basically, what it is to follow your child's natural tendencies. For example, if your child shows an interest in science more, then you do science more with them. And trust that at certain age, they are going to learn everything that is important for them to learn. So, for example, reading, you don't, just as every child learns walking at a different time, they're going to learn reading at a different time because they're an individual. So this notion of like by this age they should know how to learn how to read, this is not a good notion. It's put a lot of pressure on parents. So the thing is, your child might be more inclined towards one thing, and it's okay to follow that. And when it's time, like for example, for reading, you can do other things. For example, just read them stories. Just read them stories. And then when they see that they can get so much value out of learning how to read, and when they will start having this desire to be able to read for themselves as well. And that is when you are going to start teaching them how to read, the phonics and stuff. So basically, it is to not send your children to school, because that is a lot of waste of time as well in many ways. Sometimes it can be very detrimental. And the thing is, honestly, the schooling system, many schools have changed. Like they incorporate more child-directed play sort of thing as well. And that is okay. But the system itself is broken, because children have to do certain things at certain times. Sometimes, like during the session time, for example, if the child needs to go to the toilet, they're not able to do it unless they take permission. So that is not very good. That is not good for a child, to listening to his body and doing what's right. A child needs a lot of freedom. So basically, whatever they want, you are going to provide for them the environment to do it. And that is a brief homeschooling. You can follow a curriculum, but you don't have to be very strict with it. There is something called unschooling, where you don't follow a curriculum, just follow the child. If you don't like that, then you can follow a curriculum, but be loose about it. And most importantly, go at your child's pace, is what homeschooling is. All right. That seems to be it for today. Jazakumullah khair for joining, and سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. If you found any value in this lesson, inshallah, please do mention it in the group. And if you have any questions as well, inshallah, please do mention them. Inshallah, I will try my best to answer them, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.